Marcel Duchamp, at the age of 15, you were painting pictures that look very like the Impressionists.
They were.
Within a few years of that, you challenged the whole of the artistic values that then existed. What did you you attacked what you called retinal painting. Can you define it?
Yes, of course, everything since Courbet has been retinal. That is, you look at a painting for what you see, what comes on your retina. See? You would add nothing intellectual about it, nothing else than what the visual is on the visual side of the painting. Because it would have been anathema to say, well, this is psychoanalytical analysis of painting was absolutely anathema then. You should look and register what your eyes would see. That's why I call them retinal. Since Courbet, all the Impressionists were retinal. All the Fauvists were retinal. The Cubists were retinal. And even the Surrealists did change a bit of that. And Dada also, by saying, why should we be only interested in the visual side of a painting? There may be something else to put. And so
even while you were working in the Cubist style, you nonetheless managed to produce a Cubist painting, the Nude Descending a Staircase, which shocked the Cubists.
Yes.
Why did it shock them so much?
Because they had already, even very soon in their production, they decided to write a book. At least Metzinger and Glaise wrote a book on Cubism. It was sort of theoretical expose of what Cubism should be. See, so very early, a year or so after they had started painting, so condemned it.
Throughout your life, you really kept very much separate from groups. Did you, at that particular time, enter into any debate with the Cubists?
Hardly any. No, I was always in the margin of it.
You've in fact been associated with Dada and with Surrealism.
Also.
But nonetheless, you've very seldom been a key figure in the group activities.
Never was. At least I tried to be away from it, to keep away from the group expression, the group activity of it.
Why?
I don't know. It's a form of individualism, if nothing else.
Did you not enjoy it?
No, I never enjoyed being a part of a group. I've always wanted to make something of personal contribution to it, which is can only be done if you think by yourself and not follow the general rules of the group, you see.
When you arrived in New York, this Cubist painting we've spoken of had been arrived before you and was already a great scandalous success.
Yes.
So your reception was obviously coloured before you arrived by your work. Did you enjoy that? Or?
Yes, it was very nice to to come to a new country and be accepted and received in very nice terms. You see, that was probably what made me like America. To begin with, it's always like that with an individual. You see, if you are flattered or anything, you just fall in.
And you've enjoyed it ever since.
Yes.
Now, perhaps the most famous work of yours is the work The Great Glass, on which you spent 8 years, and some years prior to that thinking about it. Now, this was really bringing an intellectual approach into a work of art which no one had seen for many years.
Yes.
There is, in fact, a published text which was published sometime after The Glass was not finished but was abandoned.
Yeah.
Do you wish the Great Glass to be appreciated with the text to inform it?
Yes, exactly. That's where the difficulty comes in, because you cannot ask a public to look at something with a book in his hand and following sort of a diagrammatic explanation of what he can see on the glass. So it's a little difficult for the public to come in, to understand it, to accept it. But I don't mind that, or I don't care, because I did it with great pleasure. It took me 8 years to do part of it, at least. and the writing and so forth. And it was for me as an expression, really, that I'd not taken anywhere else, see, from anybody or any movement or anything. And that's why I like it very much. But don't forget, it never had any success until lately, very, very much lately.
Well, you'd worked on it for 8 years and enjoyed it very much. Why did you stop working on it? Because it's not completed, is it?
Well, you see, after 8 years of a very tedious form of work, because you make first a sketch and you transfer the sketch on the big glass, it's more almost a mechanical work. It was than what you call the splash, the splash of the brushing or something of a painter. There was nothing of this satisfaction, see, physical satisfaction of painting and looking at it and finishing it in 10 minutes or something like that. It was the opposite of it all along. So after 8 years of it, you just say, enough, and sometimes there's something in abandoning a work before the finishing, because the finishing sometimes, the Schubert, etc., etc.
It is enormously meticulous as a piece of worked-out calculation, that it's a combination of chance elements, carefully organized with mathematical calculation, so that in fact you did make it almost more tedious for yourself, that in plotting several of the points on the glass.
Yes, it was full of...
Why did you make it so difficult?
Well, because I didn't want to make it easy. In other words, why shouldn't one? It was my pleasure. I mean, call it masochism if you wish, but I mean it was like this. You see.
In fact, the plotting of the 9 molds.
Yes.
How long did that take to decide where they would be placed?
Well, in fact, in the first place, I made 8 only. And then I had a remorse of some kind, because the whole thing was more or less based on the number 3, not clairvoyantly. You see what I mean? Number 3 as 3, for me, is neither unity, neither dualism, but 3 is everything, the end of the numbering, you see? With 3 units, I have enough for the whole thing of counting things. See, millions don't count. See, 3 does it for them. So 8 was not cannot be divided by 3. 9 can. So I made it 9. I added one of the mulmalics I called the station master. That was the last one, I think. I added to the 8 to make 9. So there you are.
And how did you place them on the glass?
Well, according to the perspective, because the whole glass is based on usual, ordinary perspective, nothing very curious or very difficult. So in order to keep a thing in a certain width, the glass itself, you see, when you paint on it, and have the perspective help you reduce by the distance, so that I could put my 9 mulmalics in a certain area, and they would be seen, not outside of the glass, because you see, I had to stay in the glass after all. So that helped me to find a place for each one.
Mm. You said that the ideas in the glass are more important than its visual realization.
Yes.
Are these ideas a personal pleasure to you only, or are they ideas you wish to communicate?
Well, they are communicated by the fact that they are there, and especially with the notes in the green box, they are all there explained. I mean, there was the ideas like the chance idea, those things of the holes, bullet holes, you see bullet holes done by a little cannon with a match in it, with a little paint at the end of the match, and like a baby playing, you see.
And you shot the cannon?
Shot nine shots, you see, and they marked on the glass where it should be, and then after that, I had the points bored, you see, as a whole, to keep it more visible.
You abandoned the glass. You never embarked on anything exactly like that again.
No, never. It's too long an idea, too long an affair. See, I mean, too difficult to, because after all, you cannot make yourself anew. You see, you are one thing at around 20 years of age, 30 years of age. After that, you cannot invent any more, or very seldom you do. It's not true of painters that paint on canvas and think they can repeat, and repetition is good, because you know why? Because the collectors can collect. Even if it's a repetition of a Renoir, it's a Renoir, and it has a great value, so it goes into the market and takes its place.
The glass was broken in transit to an exhibition in 1926. How did you... Now, chance in art was something that Dada set out to really exploit, to use.
Yes.
In fact, this is an example of chance that you welcomed in the glass itself.
Oh yes, that was yes, exactly. Without even thinking about it, it came of itself.
What do you think now the element of chance in a work of art is, having tried to control and devise chance to serve your ends? Do you think it's something subconsciously that the artist projects into the work?
Yes, because chance may be unknown to us. In other words, we don't know the results of chance because we haven't got enough brains for that. See, I mean, the divine brain, for example, could perfectly say, there's no chance, I know what's going to happen. You see, we don't know because we're ignorant enough not to be able to detect what chance is going to bring. So it's a kind of adoration for chance, or the consideration of chance as almost a religious element too. So it's very interesting to have introduced, to put it at the service of art productions.
Chance must have played some part then in your other most renowned achievement, which is the readymades that you began about the same time. One work was taking 8 years, and at the same time you designated certain objects as readymades.
Yes.
Now, what sort of effort went into the choice of the object you designated?
That's another story, completely different. In that case, my idea was to find, find, or not even decide, find, but to decide to choose an object that wouldn't attract me either by its beauty or by its ugliness. To find a point of indifference in my looking at it, see? Of course, you might say I'd find any number of those, but at the same time, it's not so much, because it's hard and difficult. After a while, when you look at something, it becomes very interesting. You can even like it. And the minute I liked it, I would discard it. So the choice came only for a few objects quite disparate and different from one another. Enough so that today, looking at the 13 ready-made I made in the course of 30 years maybe, I'm satisfied by the fact that they don't look like one another. See what I mean? In other words, there is a different, completely strangeness from one to the other, which show there's no style there.
So there's no taste.
And no taste, and no liking, and no disliking either.
But in fact, you had to live with these objects before you decided you were indifferent to them. Is that right?
No, because I didn't have them with me alone. See, they were somewhere. They're not. In fact, for 20, 30 years, I never saw them very much. It's only in the last 20 years that people have been interested in them and asked me questions and things about them.
Indeed, people now say that the objects you chose have an aesthetic value. I mean, this is the bottle jar you chose. Yes. You felt indifferent to it. Do you still feel indifferent?
Yes. I'm still less, because after 20 years or 40 years of looking at it, you begin to like it. Yes. I might have disliked it, but I happen to like it. Okay. But that's the fate of everything. See? Any painting or anything at all you look at for 20 years, very often, every day, you have a liking or a disliking. If you dislike it, you discard it and throw it away. But if you like it, then you begin, that liking augments, goes on, with time. So that's this, I end by liking it.
So you've come to know and love all the ready-mades, in fact.
Yes.
What you were also attempting to do, as I understand it, was to devalue the art as an object, simply by saying,
And I think, I don't know, but this is a difficult position, because I've been in it all the time and still want to get rid of it, you see. It's not, and I cannot explain everything I do, because I do things, or people do things and don't know why they do it, you know.
You see, the anti-art movement of Dada, in fact, was proved to be in the interest of art, because it regenerated and revived and freshened people's attitude to it.
Yes, sure.
Do you, in fact, anticipate that your own contribution, when the final reckoning comes, will have, in fact, contributed to something called art?
I did, in spite of myself, if you wish to say, but I'm sorry. In other words, I would like, but at the same time, if I did, or I had done it, I would completely have been not even noticed, or people who haven't said anything. All right, there are probably 100 people like that who have given up art and condemned it and proved to themselves that it is necessary, more than religion and so forth. And who cares for them? Nobody needs.
But nonetheless, a lot of people care about art because it's worth money, and that in fact, in designating certain objects and signing them with your name, you have created a highly commercial object. In fact, in 1964, a new product was actually manufactured so that you could sign it, so that you could produce an edition of ready-mades with a value of something like £2,000.
Well, all right, but this is not high enough. I'll tell you why. Because, really, when you compare this to a painting by anybody you might name, you'll ask the difference of price between the painting, at least of a well-known painter and so forth. So, even so, I'm in the lower bracket. That's what I mean. And I excuse for that reason by being in the low bracket instead of a high bracket. So 20 million pounds, if you wish to say, when you come to Cezanne or even Picasso. But, see, that doesn't compare with the painting.
No, indeed it doesn't. But if you were following through your determination to devalue art, what would happen if, in fact, these manufactured ready-mades were mass-produced and we could all buy one for 2 shillings? What would happen?
No, you have to sign them. They are signed. They are signed and numbered.
Yes.
An edition of 8 each, like any sculpture. So it's still in the realm of art, in the form of technique. You just make 8, and you sign them and number them. So that's the end of it. You should never have one more, even if you could find them in the shops.
So that, in fact, as far as that side of your work's gone, the actual production and signing and selling of your work, you stayed very much within the accepted standards of art work.
Yes, in fact, I had to, because otherwise, where would I be? I'd be in an insane asylum, probably.
Why did you limit the number of ready-mades at the time?
Because you have to limit it, and if you to make it a little more than not too easy to find. I mean, 8, if you have to buy one of the 8 if you want it, and there will be only 8 people in the world who will have this.
No, I meant at the time when you were the 13 that you chose in about 1920s.
Yes.
Why did you not, over the years, go on choosing more and more?
Oh, because the same as I didn't finish my glasses. There's an end to everything in a long life like mine.
Your choice of ready-mades has appealed enormously to the pop art of the modern day. They, in fact, regard them as very aesthetic pieces of sculpture. How do you feel about?
Unfortunately, yes, but also they use it in a way. They're not the ready-mades themselves, but they use ready-made objects they introduce them in their paintings or in their sculptures, and it's a form of communion. I mean, friendship, if you want to call it.
Homage, really.
Well, homage doesn't mean a thing.
In fact, the whole of the Dada movement, then the Surrealist movement, seems to have been absorbed by the world of art. And today, figurative elements are very much to the fore in modern painting, as though they had absorbed all the discoveries made by the surrealists and were returning. Are they returning to what, in fact, you call retinal art?
No, they are not. I mean, people like the pops. You mean the pops and the ups? Yes, the ups are, naturally. The ups do return to pure retinal painting, retinal art, and I deplore it because I'm against retinal. As you know, we began that way, and we have to get into it with the retinal, with the ups, the optical ones. But I'm afraid there's so much repetition in the sensation and the visual sensation, the retinal activity, that it might not develop very long or get to an end, even if there are many different cases. I'm not. I like the pops much more than the ups.
In terms of the activities of the Dada group, other than painting, the sort of happenings that they devise are in fact happening again. They are called happenings today. Yeah. Do you ever see or engage in these, or feel any fellow feeling towards them?
Happenings, a lot of happenings. I know Kaprow and all these, and it's always amusing. The point that they've brought out so well, an interesting one, is they play for you a play of boredom. It has been, I'm not discovering that, but it's very interesting to have used boredom as an aim to attract the public. In other words, the public comes to a happening not to be amused, to be bored. And that's quite an invention, quite a contribution to new ideas, isn't it?
When you set out to challenge all the established values, your means was shock. You shocked the cubists, you shocked the public, you shocked the buying public.
Yes.
Do you think the public can be shocked anymore by anything it sees?
Finish. That's over. You cannot shock the public. At least with the same means. To shock the public, we'd have to, I don't know what, even that thing, the happening is boring people, boring the public, doesn't prevent them from coming. The public comes and sees anything that Kaprow does, or Oldenburg and all these people, and I've been there and I go there every time. You accept boredom as a name, you see, an intention.
Do you regret the loss of shock, or do you think it's really the artist's fault that in fact the public simply always expect to be shocked?
No, but the shock would be of a different way, a different character. You see, by shocking at that time, by shocking alongside the old channels, so to speak, but probably the shock will come of something entirely different. As I said, non-art, an-art, you say A-N-I-A-R-T, see, without no art at all, and yet something would be produced, because after all, I think the word art from etymologically means to do, not even to make, but to do, you see. And the minute you do something, you are an artist. In other words, but you are not so, you don't sell your work, but you do the action. In other words, art means action, means activity of any kind.
So everyone.
Everyone. But our society, has decided to make a group that would be called artists, a group called doctors, and so forth, which is purely artificial.
You said in the 20s you proclaimed art is dead. It isn't, is it?
Yes, well, that's what I meant by that. You see, I meant that it's dead by the fact that instead of being singularized in a little box like that, so many artists in so many square feet, by the fact that it would be universal. It would be a human factor in anyone's life to be an artist, but not noticed as an artist. You see what I mean, the difference?
Marcel Duchamp, thank you very much.
Well, I'm delighted.